Cool. All right, welcome back, everybody. I'll try to keep it brief. I realize we had some technical problems. I will say also one thing that was sort of compelling that we noticed last week. One of our readers was having that weird filtery, that thing that happens to the voice sometimes on these things, where it's like Neo, passing through to the Matrix, and like it feels a little weird. But we were talking about how last time, like any piece of art is subject to the limitations of its medium anyway, and sometimes when weird things like this happen that force us to figure out new ways to solve problems, it can be sort of interesting. And even when one of our poets was reading last week, Sarah Vapp, it started to almost sound like she was being like beamed down from a space shuttle or something. And we were talking with a couple people who were here about how sometimes it does help to not even watch the poet, but just to kind of listen to them. Like imagine you were listening to like AM radio. If you were renting a car and that were all of a sudden what was happening and you were hearing, Naomi Foyle or whoever, you definitely would probably stop the dial. So just to kind of think about what any of this means in this medium and what its limitations are and ways we can have fun with it seems kind of interesting, even if we have some guy coming in and trying to play piano over Dolores, whatever. But that said, I will quickly introduce Naomi Foyle again. Amazing poet. I think I said before that she reminds me of like the kind of extremely accurate, interesting writers like Joan Didion and Louise Glick and Jeffrey Hill. I mean, people who are sort of like have like real intelligence and precision. She mixes philosophical rumination with tight metrics and moments of sonic complexity buried like landmines. There's a classicism in her work that shows wisdom in its patience and perfectly timed utterances and insights. She's the author of several poetry pamphlets and 3 full collections: The Night Pavilion, a 2008 Poetry Society recommendation, and the World Cup, both from Waterloo Press, and the transatlantic publication Adamantine, Redhead and Bighead Press. Here is Naomi Foyle.
Well, thank you so much, John. That was extremely generous introduction. Thank you very much, Jason, and Dolores as well for inviting me and arranging the reading. I'm going to be reading first from my new collection, Adamantine. I'm going to start with poems from the second section, a sequence called The Cancer Breakthrough, which I wrote after my breast cancer treatment over 3 years ago now. And for various reasons, they feel appropriate for this time of global pandemic. To start with, the shock of the diagnosis. After the biopsy, an iron pea in a skinned pillow, mushrooming marble in a sack of aspic, trespasser acorn sprouting in flesh. Yet strangely, it doesn't feel strange to be hosting this small, numb planet, possible Death Star, this bullet embedded in a clutch of blubber, suspended a shade from my heart. What my fingers have found is the nub of my days here on Earth, a dark maternal pearl secreted by my oyster breast. Cancer isn't contagious, but it is endemic. The chances of getting in the Western world are now 1 in 2. And like lockdown, cancer treatment is draconian. I think testing and tracing is like a targeted drug, but to me, lockdown is like chemotherapy, kills the healthy with the disease cells. This poem's called Rough Justice. Everybody has cancer. Abnormality lurks in the Renaissance walls of our cells. Chemo's the new mercury, metallic assassin. It works its sizzling way through our veins, stripping perks, searing nerves, scorching hair, hissing as it kills. Everybody has cancer. Abnormality lurks in the twist of a helix, an innocent cough, the quirks of a habit somewhere well. To others spells, chemo's the new mercury, metallic assassin. It works to a contract signed at birth, a fleet of scarlet mercs sharking through intimate tunnels, pillowy hills. Everybody has cancer. Abnormality lurks. Like obscene graffiti, hyena gods circle jerks in our breasts, our brains, our souls' dark wells. Chemo's the new mercury, metallic assassin. It works like Casanova's quicksilver, scalding his irksome 11 infections, a long dose of fresh hells. Everybody has cancer. Abnormality works. Chemo's the new mercury, metallic assassin. It lurks. Cancer and coronavirus are also similar, and they provoke a massive collective humanitarian response. This poem is dedicated to the breast cancer survivor and fundraiser Sarah Fizzy Snood Cutting. I tried to question military metaphors for my cancer. So it's called If It Is a War. Just going to take a little sip of tea. If it is a war, the war on cancer is fought in furtive exchanges of stained rayon frocks, loud ties, frayed leather belts left against orders in plastic bags at the doors of closed shops, steam cleaned in back rooms, tagged and hung by immigrants, retirees, trans women and students, fingered by party girls, single mums, lads between jobs, worn out lecturers on 0-hour contracts who don't earn enough to gift aid. The war on cancer is waged by athletic baristas, weekend cyclists, half marathon runners, hill climbers, cake bakers, crochet vest makers, their media queen, a beaming bald veteran posting bad jokes and fab pics, a kooky carousel of tiaras, tinsel and fruit fascinators crowning her stubble. She commands, dig deep, pass the shrapnel for a $5, a $10. Now go check your bits. Armies of lab rats bite not magic bullets. Generals clink champagne flutes at celebrity dinners. But from control rooms to trenches, everyone knows the war on cancer will be won by the dead. Their anonymous names engraved on brass plaques, screwed to ice cap machines and hospital walls, commemorating lumps with lump sums, in thanks, in memory, in hope for us all. So other parallels between the illness are insomnia, which I had, but also the sense of being in for the long haul. These are both existential crises that offer us an opportunity to slow down and change our way of life for the better. So I'll finish with the title poem of the sequence. I'll finish the cancer poems, with this title poem and the hope that the coronavirus may yet also prove, as cancer was for me, to be a medicine. The cancer breakthrough will not take place in a lab or corporate boardroom, won't foam in a test tube, blinking code on a screen, be hawked for megabucks by big pharma, or flood the world's RSS feeds. The cancer breakthrough is happening now and again and again in the echoing space, that cold ocean of years between one heart and another. So obviously there's a very wide variety of experiences that we're all going through in the world at the moment. I'm extremely fortunate to have a job, to have a flat, to have money coming in, feel very shielded. Friends in Palestine having a very different experience. I'm going to read a poem from the first part of the book, Indelible, which is in memory of Razan al-Najjar, who was the young paramedic who was shot on the Great March of Return. Her mother clutches the evidence, a white coat, no longer white, but rust red, blotched, like the hide of a gazelle, discarded by drunken poachers after slaughtering the herd. As cameras circle, news feeds buzz, this woman's grief points like a finger to a truth beyond proof. Its red crescent still just visible. This vest is mercy's banner, sunset stained. Palestinians, and also some Israelis, know a lot about house arrest. It's a poem called The Purse. It's for Doreen Tatour and Einat Weitzman. Doreen Tatour is a poet I published in the anthology A Blade of Grass, New Palestinian Poetry. She spent 3 years in prison or under house arrest for the crime of writing a poem. The Purse. It arrived in a jiffy bag, my reward for supporting Prisoners of the Occupation, a play by an Israeli woman banned and denounced by the Minister of Culture, vilified online for glorifying terrorists. Terrorists, like the young woman who'd embroidered 28 purses for the crowdfunding campaign while under house arrest for writing a poem. It was larger than I'd expected, a flat purse with a metal lip and clasp, covered in black cloth, and row upon row of red circles and green crosses, interlocking flowers and wheels, the kind of pattern the eye just can't stop making sense of. Simple, but complex, molecular, celestial, iconic, and so comfortable in my palm, holding it was like shaking the capable hand of its maker. The next day I woke up early into a stretch of time I wouldn't normally enjoy, a time for counting blessings. Starting with 60 tiny green crosses of 2 stitches each, 56 large green crosses of 10 stitches each, 220 red petals, 24 stitches each, and 56 red rings of 16 stitches each, a total of, I had to get my calculator out, and still I got it wrong, 6,856 stitches. At let's say 10 seconds a stitch, that's 68,560 seconds, or just over 19 hours, allowing a minute every 200 stitches for rethreading and knotting, and 10 minutes an hour for tea making and sipping, adds another 195 minutes, for a total of 22 hours and 15 minutes, or just under a long sleepless day of Doreen's life, of which she has so far, including the leap year, spent 1,002 days locked up, waiting for court dates, reading Darwish, praying, laughing, and sewing purses full of poems. And then I've also been very honored to meet Mordecai Vanunu, who I met on my second visit to Jerusalem. We had coffee outside the educational bookshop for 2 hours. An hour in, he turned to me and he said, "I'm only allowed to speak to you for half an hour." So you'll remember Mordecai Vanunu as the whistleblower, the Israeli nuclear technician who exposed Israel's nuclear capacity to the world. Nestless. Is a bird still a bird, without wings or song? Ask the whistleblower. Feathers clipped, beak bound with barbed wire, he stalks the streets of a riven city, tracks the scars across its hills, scents the wind, awaits the call. His heart's a booming bittern, trapped in a prophet's tomb, the lightning in his eye, a silent eagle's shriek, the telling of his secret peace. Vanunu, 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 a downy coo that wears away all walls. I'm going to finish with 2 new poems. First one is called 2020. I actually wrote it on New Year's Day, and it's turned out to be a bit creepily prophetic. Though I hope, as when I get to the end, I hope not 100% accurate. 2020. Welcome to the year of twin swans emerging from 2 tunnels. I say with sorrow, having looked ahead to far distant centuries and knowing no other date will ever match such elegance. In the floating mirror of 2020, we are all still visionaries. Such a perfect number. I almost wouldn't mind it on my grave. Lockdown, day 19. For 19 years, I've mourned the lack of light in my rented basement flat, have rued the roar of traffic from the road. Engine thunder a guest once thought was the sea, but for me makes sitting outside impossible, like being run over by a herd of invisible buses. Now, though, the world has changed. I've ordered cheap wireless headphones, an orange garden lounger, and like a clingy child, follow the sun round all day. At 10 in the morning, I sit, head bowed over my bran flakes in a warm oblong in the hall. Between noon and 1, I'm out in the concrete well by the drain and gas meters, reading poetry to Bach and a dull background rumble. Or books shelved in the geraniums, white limbs snaking in spring's silent disco, mainlining Nico and Marianne Faithfull. At 2 o'clock, I bathe in a tub of sunbeams that sets the bathroom taps agleam. At 3:30, I wash the dishes, marveling at the sparkling glasses, hands plunged in radiant suds. And at 4, I stand and stretch on the back step, anointed by my day's last ray of light. I could be on a cult retreat, a devotee of solace, or a helio self-therapist, a cell in a global battery, soaking up my minute share of the life force. At night, though, after YouTube yoga and the news, with its daily count and growing roll call of grandmothers and grandfathers, parents, brothers, sisters, bus drivers, hospital porters, care workers, doctors, nurses, some young, some fit, so many brown. I lie on the sofa staring into the dark, where those glowing faces are joined by the dim after images of nurses working in bin bags, mobile morgues, a mass grave in the Bronx, and scenes from prison films. An unlucky stoner reaching between the bars of a Malaysian prison, crying, "I see you, I see you," to his best friend mounting the scaffold in the yard. Lifers in a Turkish jail sitting lotus in grey light. Black men banged up in stark white cages. One released into Gen Pop, who stabbed a man 100 times, handed in the shiv, and asked to be put back in the hole. My sentence is hardly severe, but neither is it clear where it will end. I lift that other radiant window, my computer screen, onto my lap to check my OkCupid messages. Nothing of interest. As I shut the lid, I remember too that vaulted room at Her Majesty's Prison, Lewis, now surely gathering dust, but over which, when I was there, visiting a pen pal, a great hush fell, an audible mist, all chatter stilled. Elijah winked, and I turned, bemused, to see, against the rules, the guards blind-eyed, a vast hall full of men and women desperately kissing. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Very nice.
Mhm.
Thank you, Naomi. That was amazing. It was beautiful.
Thank you.
God, that you could mention even mass graves in the Bronx. I'm like a 10-minute walk away from the field hospital in like the Manhattan Bronx line. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Damn, that was great. Great stuff. Thank you to Dolores as well. This was really cool. I will briefly plug next week. We would love to be seeing the same people back. It's kind of funny how they were like in-person regulars and now they're sort of digital regulars.